Well, how's it going, everybody? How are we doing? How are we doing out there? I'd like to welcome you all to let me shut down my speakers here in the background. I'd like to welcome you all to my pro-Christian, pro-American, pro-God, pro-traditional values, pro-family, pro-two-parent household, pro-Second Amendment, pro-President Trump live stream. Typically on my channel, I don't really talk that much about politics. And you might be asking yourself, what in the world does a finance bro, does a guy who talks about real estate almost exclusively have to say about what's going on in the country today? Why would you care? Why should you care? Maybe you shouldn't. Maybe I'm not worth listening to. But you know what? I felt compelled after the events that unfolded over the last couple of days to say what I believe. I didn't work hard to get to a YouTube channel with nearly 10,000 subscribers over 7 or 8 years of making videos, so I could just sit idly by, shut up, and not say anything that would be deemed too offensive to the people out there whose attention that I try to garner by making real estate videos. Personally, I don't care if you unfollow me. I don't care if you unsubscribe. I don't care if you're offended. I posted something on Instagram and immediately lost 100 followers. Well, see ya. I don't care. Leave. If you can't look at what's going on in the country, in America, in our political discourse, if you can't take a look at that and say that it's time for some sort of change, I think you're being dishonest, incredibly dishonest. I, like many of you, watched video footage of President Trump being shot in the face a couple of days ago and was completely shocked. Not surprised, but completely shocked. Unfortunately, it's one of the most shocking things, but very predictable. Many people, like me, follow political discourse, I would say, more than your average citizen. I love to listen to talk show radio. I always have. And even though I don't listen to talk show radio anymore because I just do the podcast version of it, I listened to AM radio for almost my entire life. Some of my earliest memories of being stuck in the car as a young child in the Seattle traffic, which was terrible in the 90s, just as it is today, was listening to AM talk show radio and hearing what the personalities had to say about the current events of the day. Made me more educated about certain political topics than most of my peers in elementary school, middle school, and high school. And though some people may say, well, that's what led to your indoctrination and your belief in the values you have. Again, I would say, welcome to my pro-Christian, pro-God, pro-America, pro-Second Amendment, pro-family, pro-two-parent household, pro-capitalism live stream. Absolutely, completely indoctrinated in traditional American values. Maybe you should give it a try. Certainly take a look around at the environment that I find myself living in the city of Seattle, state of Washington. And it's a far cry from the place where I grew up in North Dakota. It's a tale of two cities, a tale of two states. And I know that even though North Dakota is icy cold most of the year and humid, hot, miserable for a few months in the summer, there's a certain romantic feeling about being in that small town Midwestern vibe that I miss. I miss living there. I miss driving down the street and waving to people and having it just be normal. They have something here called the Seattle Freeze. Nobody talks to each other. People aren't polite. No one's friendly. It's, I guess, just a big city thing. Not to get too far off topic, I want to talk today about my support of the president. It's been longstanding. I busted out my shirt that I have, which is a America First shirt. I'd like to welcome. Oh, let me silence that real quick. I'm pulling up the chat just in case I see anything. All right. Okay. Why would I support the president? Why would I support the values? Why do I have the values that I have? Why do I say I don't care if you want to stop following me. I don't care. One of the interesting things about making a YouTube channel is you have to work very hard to get attention. Getting attention is difficult, and you want to appeal to a somewhat large audience because, well, the more people that you talk to, the higher likelihood that you can get those people in your audience and you can share your message with them. So I've worked hard. I've worked very hard to try to display a truthful, honest message about how you can go from rags to riches, which is another conservative ideal. Capitalism, pull yourself up by your bootstraps. Anybody can make it in the US. It's funny, I see posts online from some of my peers that I went to school with. Things like, oh, you'll never hear someone more angry that they're increasing the taxes on the rich than a dude making minimum wage working for a bottom level position for some corporation. And you know what's funny? You're right. People like me that used to make minimum wage and worked for a large corporation could still understand how if you destroy the tax system and make it impossible for someone like me to ascend through the socioeconomic ranks, that might limit my opportunities. And so even though I wasn't rich at 18 or 19 or 23 or 25, I still recognized how I wanted to make sure there was opportunities for me to make money. And that's, of course, what led me to start investing in real estate. And that's what's led me to become a 30-year-old guy with a net worth of over $1 million and 27 rental units and nearing early retirement. And I see the benefit of the system that I grew up in, the system that feels like it's under constant attack from all angles, all the time. Threats, both foreign and domestic. People hate our country. People hate our values. People hate our religion. People hate us. People hate you. That's certainly what it felt like when we watched that video of what happened to the president, giving a speech at a rally like he does, talking to crowds of thousands of people like he does, and all of a sudden a shot rings out, followed by multiple other shots, and the president grabs for his ear, immediately recognizes what's going on, drops beneath the podium as Secret Service tackles him to the ground. And then for the next 30 seconds to a minute, they're trying to organize and figure out how to get off the X. Very common thing in a tactical environment. For those of you who have followed me, you know that I'm a police officer, a SWAT officer. When you take fire, the first thing you do is respond with fire and get off the X. Well, President Trump wasn't armed giving his speech, so it was regroup and get off the X, move, get to cover, get to a secure location. So they took the 30 seconds to 60 seconds to assess while things were going on, while more shots continued to ring out. Then the president stood up and did one of the most American things that I've ever seen anyone do ever, which was tell the Secret Service to wait so that he could raise his fist, punch the air, and remind the American people to fight. Interpret that however you will. I know how I interpret it. Fight for what you believe in. Fight for the values of our country. Fight for capitalism. Fight for religion. Fight for your God, your country, your family. Protect the things that are important to you. It's interesting. Many people, most people, I would imagine, probably have never been shot at in their lives. It's not a great feeling. I've been shot at a handful of times in my line of duty. I've never actually been hit, thank God. Hope that I never am. But with the experience that I have, I can tell you firsthand the mental composure that it would take to have just been hit and stay on message and professional enough to stand back up, say to wait, punch your fist in the air, and remind the American people to fight before you're then whisked away by security and off to the nearest hospital. That is an amazing feat of mental fortitude. I think that it's very difficult for some people to truly comprehend what that takes. We have Hollywood and action movies that make that type of behavior seem commonplace. It's not. It's absolutely not. You know, most people have the fight, flight, or freeze instinct. It's just a biological evolutionary adaptation to danger. Fight, flight, or freeze. Freeze is very common. Flight is very common. Fight, somewhat common. But I'll tell you what, watching that, there's no doubt in my mind. President Trump's immediate reaction to a threat is to fight. And I've been in scenarios with other men like that when we've been shot at, and you look around and you recognize what's happening to you and what you have to do. And you need people on your side who are fighters, who stand up in the face of danger or aggression or violence and do what's right. It's not an easy thing to do. It's very, very hard to overwrite your biological programming. Most people, they just have that built into them, what they're going to do. But I'll tell you what, it's damn inspirational when you see it on display like that for everybody. Immediate, very impressive. Now, I've enjoyed supporting political conservatives for most of my life. Again, I grew up in North Dakota. It's one of the most conservative states there is. It's one of the wealthiest states that there is per capita. It's a very safe place. It's a state with high gun ownership, very low crime. I would love to live in North Dakota still if it wasn't for the fact that I'm selfish. I'm selfish, and I love the ocean, and I love the mountains. And as much as the beautiful plains of amber waves of grain are beautiful to me, the big sky country that you see out there where it's nothing but flat, a flat landscape and beautiful, beautiful sky. I love the ocean. I fell in love with the ocean when I really first saw it for the first time when I was like 17 years old. That's why I live where I live now. And that's why I hope to move to Florida, which has, I think, the best mix of both worlds, which would be some of the ideals and values that I support, mixed with the scenery that I enjoy. I think that's why a lot of people move to Florida. Now, the purpose of this message or the purpose of this video isn't to convince you to vote the same way as me, isn't to sit here and be angry and upset and call people to violent acts. I would never do something like that. It's ridiculous. Absolutely ridiculous. In fact, we probably need to lower the temperature of the political discourse in our country. That might help, when the president has been called literally Hitler for 10 years. I think that might possibly lead to the predicament we found ourselves in, where people think that it's acceptable to try to kill him. If you tell a lie enough times, it becomes a truth. And if you just accuse someone of being the equivalent of the worst dictator that's ever lived in our history, well, yeah, people might feel justified in completely inexcusable acts of violence like the one that we all saw a couple of days ago. So maybe it would be best if we lowered and walked back some of our political discourse and stopped speaking to each other so hatefully. I know it's tempting, it's very tempting. And I oftentimes get engaged in the comment section of my videos with people, and I'll throw a little bit of shade as it's thrown at me. Now, typically, the issues aren't over anything innately political. I mean, obviously, investing in real estate can be politicized. You can go with the oppressor-oppressed narrative and say, oh, landowners are evil capitalists and we're taking advantage of people. But it's not an inherently, immediately political topic to cover, which is why you don't see a whole bunch of these gurus out there talking about what happened, taking a stance on what happened, because I think they're happy to just sit and stay on their channel and say, well, it's off message for me. It's off brand for me. It's not my place to talk about those types of topics. I have a finance channel. Why should I muddy my hands or interject, or who would care? And they're all very reasonable excuses, but at the end of the day, they're just excuses. And I think that it's important, if you're going to do your best to live the type of life where you lead and try to inspire other people, that you talk about what you stand for. So for me, even though I don't talk about politics normally on my channel, I'm well aware of the negative effects it could have on a growing YouTube channel. I just don't care. I don't care. I care more about being honest to the things I believe in, to the people that watch or follow me, to the people who look up to me for leadership, to my friends and to my family. I just care more about being honest about what I think and what I feel and what I believe. And what I believe is that I fully support conservative values for our country. I want to see more two-parent households. I want to see mom and dad at home with the kids instead of a single-parent society, which is what we have. And you can call me a hypocrite because I myself am a single parent with full custody. Not by choice, but that's the hand that I was dealt. I still want to advocate for the things that I think are right. I think that it would be better if we spent more time going to church, become unbelievably inappropriate to talk about religious values, to share our religious values. I think that the further that we get away from our religious roots, which used to tie our country together and tie our society together, I think that the further we push away from that, the worse it's going to be. We had shared common values. We used to share so many common values. We used to share things like the love of sports events, like a football game, and the love of the national anthem, or saying the Pledge of Allegiance. It was funny. I was giving a speech to a high school class a few months back, and they'd asked me to come out and speak about being on the SWAT team, and I was wearing my SWAT uniform, and the Pledge of Allegiance came on. I was like, oh, I forgot that was something that was done in schools. And I stood up at attention and said the Pledge of Allegiance, and I noticed I was one of about 4 people in that classroom that did that. The teacher, 2 students, and me. All of the other students just sat there. Should they be compelled? Absolutely not. You shouldn't be compelled to say something you don't believe in. But when do you teach people, or how do you teach people, that sense of civic duty that I have, that many people who've served our country have, that many people in the military have? I think there's something admirable about that. And obviously, America has made plenty of mistakes in its past, and not everything that we've done is, of course, worthy of admiration. But I think that by and large, on the whole, our country has been a remarkable force for good. I think that if you actually understand our history and you understand the times that we've sacrificed on behalf of others, the times that we've been called upon and relied upon to lead, and even though we've made mistakes, overall, we've been a net positive force for good. And I'm proud of that. I'm proud to be somebody who will never be remembered. My name won't be remembered. The contributions that I made won't be remembered, but I participated in an institution that will be remembered. And that institution is the institution of law enforcement. I've spent 10 years almost now helping people, responding to 911 calls, putting myself in dangerous situations to make sure that the worst and most dangerous of those among us hopefully go to jail. And I know that there's many members of the military, my brother, my best friend, many of my other friends in the military, who joined for the same reasons, because they wanted to be a part of something that is bigger than them. And that's our country. That's our culture. That's our society. We try to do what we believe is right. I believe that not all cultures are created equal. There's many cultures out there that are admirable. There's many cultures out there that are amazing that we can learn from. And there's also cultures out there that are evil. In America, we would never even think, we couldn't even possibly conceive about strapping a bomb onto a child and marching that child towards infantrymen from an enemy and then blowing it up. That's just something we couldn't even conceive of because it's culturally abhorrent to us, but not to every culture. I'm not calling anyone out specifically, but if you pay any attention to the way things go, look at what's going on right now in the Middle East. What happened on October 7th? Does it feel like things are getting better or getting worse? Are we more stable or less stable as a country, as a nation, than we were 4 years ago? What was the price of gas? What was the price of eggs? What were the interest rates? What was the cost of housing? How many wars were there? How much uncertainty was there? Things don't seem to be doing well. You can call me a conspiracy theorist, call me crazy, say that I'm indoctrinated, or I'm just some right-wing, gun-loving religious nut. I wear that title like a badge of honor, proud to be. Strapped, and praise the Lord. I certainly think that it's time for America to admit that we absolutely need to lead the world with our values and our culture and our morals. And unless we actually make it a point to teach our own children what those values and morals are and preserve those cultural ideas from one generation to the next, then we're going to fail. And if we fail and we leave some sort of vacuum of power on the world stage, well, it will be filled by people who don't have our best interest at heart, don't have anyone else's best interest at heart. I think a strong America is a good America. I love my country. I love this country. It's the most beautiful country. Everywhere I've been, I haven't been to every state, but I've been to about 35 of them. Everywhere I go, there's something beautiful and admirable about this country. Even in places like Gary, Indiana, where it's somewhat of an post-industrial wasteland, abandoned buildings and abandoned houses all over the place. And yet when you walk around the city, it's still part of our country. Still butts up to one of the Great Lakes, still surrounded by farms, still littered with steel manufacturing plants that were a symbol of our great manufacturing power at one point. And hopefully we'll get to hear the manufacturing facilities turn on and bring jobs back to the area and revitalize places in the Rust Belt, places like Indiana or Michigan, Pennsylvania. Hopefully we get to hear that once again, maybe in my lifetime. I like to think that I'm participating in some small way when I remodel every single house, every single duplex, fourplex, fiveplex that I've purchased and poured in my money and poured into it my time and attention and my effort and lack of sleep, and worked overtime so I could afford to do another remodel as I slowly rebuild that city one block at a time, one remodel at a time, with the help of countless other investors that I met along the way. I like to think that revitalization of a place like Gary, Indiana is the American dream. It is the American story. We don't give up. You can kick us. You can shoot us. You can cheat, you can lie, you can try to defeat us in any way you can, but we just continue to persevere. We don't give up. We never quit. We refuse. We endure. They call it the indomitable human spirit. We just won't stop. And I think that that's just a beautiful thing about our country and about our society. Much as people love to hate on us, make fun of us. Oh, America's the country that has the most people that believe in angels, as if that's some sort of insult for us to be religious. I'm proud to believe in God. I'm proud to believe in Jesus. I think that it's very sad if you truly believe that after life, it's just over. I choose to believe in living for something bigger than me, bigger than my family, bigger than the impact that I have, that there's a greater good, that I should work towards it, that I should be good and kind to others, that I should teach that message, that I should shout that message from any platform that I can, including this one. Ban me or unsubscribe, I don't care. It's what I believe. Hate me all you want. I'm brave enough to say it and go on the record. Are you? I'm going to go ahead and take a look at a couple of the comments, see what people have to say. Basilio, it's nice to see you, my friend. Clayton James, my suggestion is not to alienate your audience by avoiding topics that are not in line with the reason and goals for this channel. Your personal support of anyone politically is just that, personal. Clayton, I appreciate your opinion, my friend. I get it. And this is a very common talking point that I hear all the time. Well, you don't want to alienate your audience. We've made it taboo and inappropriate to talk about politics, to talk about religion, to talk about finances. It's not polite. It's not appropriate. Don't say it. Shut up. People, do the nice thing. Just go along to get along. Well, going along to get along has gotten us to exactly where we are right now. People like me who are inherently polite and were raised to be polite and raised not to be offensive and to try to smooth things over. People like me don't say what we believe enough. And that's where this phrase, the silent majority, comes from. Well, maybe the majority of people really believe in some of the ideas and values that I hold dear, but, we're just silent about it. Well, I don't want to be silent about it. I'm not going to be rude or nasty or in your face or call you names or threaten you with violence, as one side of the political aisle seems to do frequently. It's someone who's had to be at many of the different riots that have gone on, and protests that have gone on, and had things thrown at me and been spit on. I'll tell you, it's funny. It does only seem to happen from one side when I get that. But, call me crazy. I don't want to be silent. If I alienate some of my audience, that's okay. I don't care enough about growing a YouTube channel to not say or stand for the things that I believe in. I just don't care. And if you care so much about what my opinions are, that one video out of 800 makes it so that you just can't watch my channel, well, I would suggest that you're a bit of a snowflake. Here's the beautiful thing about our country. We can have differing political opinions and we can still be friends. I live in Seattle. I'm in one of the bluest of blue states there are. I have countless friends with many different political ideologies, many different lifestyles. Friends with these people. I spend time with these people. I hang out with these people. I play sports with these people. I have no problem because they're different in their ideology from me. I have a problem with them. Why do you have a problem with me? Where's your tolerance? Where's your acceptance of differing views? That only extends to people who have the same political views as you, but just different cultural backgrounds. I would say you're a hypocrite if that's the case. And maybe you should take a closer look at yourself. Certainly the media and Hollywood and the culture and TikTok and Instagram and YouTube seem to purport messages that don't coincide with what I believe. So if I have to be the counter-cultural movement, if I have to be somebody who goes against the grain, and if I have to lose some followers for it, well, so be it. I don't care. I really don't. Because I'll tell you something that's real frustrating. I don't have freedom of speech. You know, I work as a police officer. I have to be careful about what I say. I have to be careful about how I say it. I share my message on a platform like YouTube or Instagram. I have to be careful about what I say. There's buzzwords that can get you banned, shadow banned, blacklisted, channel deleted, demonetized, all these different phrases out there that exist if you don't say the right things, if you don't embody the right zeitgeist. Got to be careful. And I don't like it. I don't like having to have conversations with people at work or have conversations with people offline because we can't talk about it online. Dion and the Lumberjack and myself have to have our conversations about our beliefs, and then we have to bring you a very tempered version of it because we can't tell you about what we really think about certain issues because the channels will just disappear. Very disappointing. And I just don't care. And I'm not trying to throw Dion or Matt the Lumberjack under the bus. I'm sure that whatever values that they hold are perfectly acceptable for YouTube. Perfectly. But I just don't care if I lose some followers. Most of the time I talk about real estate investing. I've always helped anyone that I can get started investing in real estate at a distance. I've always shared my team with everyone. I don't put it behind a paywall. I don't try to gouge my audience for money. I try to help people. I think that that's a good thing to do. And if you want to know my political beliefs, watch this live stream. If you don't want to know what they are, then check back in later when I release another video on Friday that's about real estate. And if it offends you so deeply that I'm sharing my values and my beliefs and what made me into the man that I am, go away. I don't care. All right. Trump 2024. Exactly. Yep. I have no 2024 merchandise. This was from the last election. I had to pull it out from the dresser, wear it to the gym, get some looks from people. Hold on, let me get back to these comments real fast. I'm sure I'm catching up on these. Hold on. All righty, okay. Clayton James again says you can call for us to lower the temperature of things politically and remain neutral, or better yet, compare the market IYO under one versus the other. The market, in your opinion, under one versus the other. So I did talk about lowering the temperature of things politically. I'm absolutely not going to remain neutral. Nope. That is a coward's way out. And probably the two worst insults that you could ever say to me, and I would think to any man who still bleeds red with an ounce of testosterone in their blood, would be to call them a coward and to call them lazy. Those are the two worst insults that you could possibly receive as a man. You're a coward or you're lazy. You should be disgusted by that. Being neutral? No, I'm not neutral. I support President Trump. I will be voting for President Trump. Thank you, President Trump, for running again, because now I get to vote for you 3 times instead of just the 2, because I voted for him in 2016, and I sat there with my newborn baby, who was like 6 weeks old, James, when he won the election the first time around. And then I sat there very unhappy and sad that he lost the election in 2020. And I will be extremely excited, I'm sure, to watch him win the election in 2024. I refuse to remain neutral. Being neutral is a coward's way out. Brett Bisber says, love the shirt. Native to Earth, Trump 2024. Lavetta, do schools still say the pledge? Some schools. Apparently some schools still do. Mark Ham says, hey, everybody and Mike. Thanks, man. And Clayton James with another comment. Clayton, I do appreciate you watching it, even if you disagree with me. that is what part of what makes America America, being able to stomach differing opinions. In fact, I would say that if you stop talking to the people who you don't agree with and resign yourself to an echo chamber, that's actually the worst thing you could do. Forcing the conversation and forcing yourself and everyone forcing themselves to realize that the people out there who believe differently than me are still good people, even if we don't agree, for the most part. Obviously, there's psychos out there. To insinuate that inflation is the president's fault, you know that the current president is for regulation and Republican president means less. That means Trump would have had the same or less tools. Well, we can get into a long argument as to inflation, into what caused the inflation. I think that there's many different factors that are causing inflation, but absolutely, I would say that some of the factors, absolutely 100%, are due to what the current president has done. Without a doubt, when you print money and spend money and add to the monetary supply, you create inflation. Well, but Mike, President Trump printed money. President Trump handed out the stimulus checks. Absolutely. Yeah, he did. Yep. And he is partially to blame for the inflation. He's partially to blame for the bump in inflation. And then those policies continued and got exacerbated and became worse. And we made even worse policies in terms of emptying out strategic oil reserves, closing down multiple different pipelines that would have helped us keep the cost of oil down. Sorry, you don't just get to say, oh, well, no regulation would have meant more inflation. No, it's significantly more complex than that. Significantly more complex than that. The REI struggle says, love it, Mike. Love you too, buddy. Let's see here. Julie Anderson, semi-bird for governor. The only one that is a true conservative, Clayton James. Born and raised 2 miles from JBLM. That's awesome, man. That's awesome. Adam Calhoun, what's up, Mike? Just saw you were live. Appreciate you jumping in. Come on, Financial Freedom Journey says, love it. Adam Calhoun says, Mike's always helped answer my questions. He has no idea my political opinions are. Adam, not only do I have no idea what your political affiliations opinions are, I don't care, man. You could be whatever. And I would still do my best to help you out, buddy, because I don't meter my friends list or the people that I interact with based on whether or not they agree with me. I just do my best to help everybody. And if someone wants my advice politically on a subject, or if somebody wanted to know my religious opinion on something, then I'd be more than happy to share that information with them. More than happy to give them my opinion. But when it's not asked for, I'm not going to give it, except for when I think that it's time to actually make sure that some voices get heard. So for instance, this right here. And again, if you're clicking on this video to watch it, you're choosing to be here. You don't have to watch this. If you don't want to hear my opinion, don't click on the video. But I'm going to say it because I think that too many people like me get caught up, as I said earlier, in the go along to get along, be polite, don't ruffle any feathers, don't piss off and alienate half your audience. Just, stick to the financial topics. I just don't want to. Nope, I don't want to. Not today, not in light of what happened. If the president can get on stage and get shot in the face and take a bullet and go through the court processes that he's been going to and go through the humiliation and lose all the money with his businesses, if he will still run for president, if he'll do all of that because he believes in his message and he believes in defending in America, then the least I can do is lose a few hundred or a few thousand subscribers, risk getting banned off the platform of my channel, deleted. The least I can do for a guy who's willing to take a bullet for me is take the ban for him. So that's why I'm here sharing my message to the few hundred people that'll see it. I'm not personally offended. I don't think you should be silent about it. It's your channel, but I have different business philosophy. And even if you're for the other side, I'd say the same. Well, that's great, man. We printed a lot of money in 2008, but yes, we also had a depression. Yeah. No, I'm with you, man. I mean, I'll be the first to tell you, I think that we bailed out the banks. I think that was a terrible thing. In fact, that's not capitalism. Capitalism doesn't say, oh, if you get too big to fail, we'll bail you out. Capitalism says, sorry, man, your bank made some very, very poor choices, and you're now going to fail. And one of the things that I think is remarkable, and I've caught a little bit of flack over the years for saying this, I'm ageist. I think the boomers are going to go down as the most selfish generation. Every time that they've come up against a major economic hurdle like the 2008 financial recession, they have chosen to kick the can down the road. They've had the majority voting power in our country for a very long time. It's now slowly being outweighed by the other generations, but they still have the majority of individuals in elected representative positions like the Senate, the House, the presidency. They've elected to kick the can down the road. And now we're at a time in America which is unlike any others, because for the first time, the current generation is leaving a country and leaving less opportunities and leaving it worse off for the next generation. They inherited something that was on the upward trajectory. My generation is inheriting something that has flatlined, stalled out, and is rapidly declining in many aspects. It's a unique position to be in. I have faith that we'll be able to hopefully right the ship. I think that it can be done. I think it's going to take great sacrifice, and I think that's what people don't like. No one wants to make sacrifice. I understand it. It's not fun. It's not fun to hear Social Security is likely not going to be there for me. But we could put our head in the sand and extend and pretend and print money until our dollar is completely devalued, and we can inflate our problems to the moon and then just point fingers and blame everybody else. Or we could actually take some personal accountability and try to fix the problem. But unfortunately, things probably will get worse before they get better economically, because I think that's what it'll take. I think as long as people can continue to extend and pretend and put things on credit, I think that's what will happen. And it probably will take a major recession or depression before people finally wake up and behavior changes, and maybe we see some sort of resurgence. And you know what? Back to one of my earlier points about being pro two family, pro child society. We need families to have kids again. We're below replacement rates. We have, I can't remember what it is. I think it's like a 1.7 birth rate right now, right? You need 2 to be at replacement rate, and really you need slightly above 2. It's not looking good. And it's actually not looking good for damn near every country that there is. Almost all developed countries are now not at replacement rates for birth rates. I think that one of the best things we could do is start blasting out pro-family propaganda everywhere. Just start paying influencers left and right to get married and have kids and promote that as a message, because as every other country's population declines, if we manage to be the country with that increasing stable population, I think that that would be one way we can dig ourselves out. You know how we got to the position we're in after World War II, when almost all of the countries in Europe had been destroyed because of the war. The country that was largely untouched, with the exception of Pearl Harbor and Hawaii, largely untouched was the US. Our manufacturing had been ramped up, just ridiculously ramped up to fund the war and to provide the means necessary to win that war. And then we all came home. All the millions of soldiers came home and went into the factories, and that's where we had the greatest economic boom of our country's history. And that really put us on the world stage as a major world power. United Nations came along after that, and American industrialism was great for about 30, 40 years until we started shipping jobs overseas with some really bad policy and some greedy corporations. I would like to see us take advantage of the opportunity we have in front of us to be the only country that maintains a population or has an increasing population as an edge, an economic edge for us moving forward. So hold on, let me get to some of these chats because I'm just rambling here. And guys, I do appreciate everybody who's watching this. It's funny. Most of my live streams, I actually average around 30, 40, 50 people. So you get up around 60, 70 sometimes. I got 17 right now. 17 people who probably think the same as me, and a whole bunch of other people who can't stand what I'm talking about. But again, I just don't care. Oh, man. Okay. The wealth building journey. Good to hear from you, Chester. He says, Millennial Mike Mondays, a new Dionism. Much as I would love to commit to a consistent time for doing live streams, maybe we could make Mondays work, but I can't say for certain. But again, I just felt compelled to talk about this. Mrs. K. Sanya says, thank you for addressing this. Dividend Dave says, hello. Mrs. K says, $5. Thanks for covering this, Mike. Thank you. Josh Burdick says, hats off, speaking boldly. Thank you, Mike. American flag. I'm with you. Lavetta, millennials may be set to be the wealthiest generation over the next couple of decades due to the boomer wealth transfer. You're right. That's actually a very interesting thing. The boomers have ridiculous amounts of wealth because most people's wealth is tied up in their houses, and the values of houses have gone through the roof. Stock market, of course, is doing well. So even the people who have 401ks and RRAs, in the most part, by and large, are doing well right now, though that is more susceptible to a crash or something. what is going to happen when that wealth transfers? Very interesting. I'll be very curious to see what does happen. It's interesting when you read books like The Millionaire Next Door, which I think I have, yep, right here. Read a book like The Millionaire Next Door, and a book like that tells you. I want to make sure my stuff's so wrong. Okay, a book like that would tell you that. And oh, whoops. A book like that tells you. Okay, hopefully I didn't just cancel my whole live stream. A book like that will tell you that if you didn't earn the money yourself, you're never going to be a good steward of it. What they call it is economic outpatient care. It's when parents have to continually fund the lifestyle of children. It's one of the reasons why occasionally when we get questions doing live streams with Dion or the Lumberjack or Zuber, we get questions, how do you teach your kids about money? I lie to my kid and tell them we're poor. I tell them we're poor. I tell them we don't have money for stuff all the time because I grew up unbelievably poor. And I knew at a very young age that if I wanted to buy Pokemon cards, I was going to have to mow the lawns to get the money to go do it. And it formed me and shaped me into the person that I became, frugal and financially responsible and driven and motivated to become successful. And I worry about what will happen with these millennials getting all of this money. First of all, I'm sure for most of them, it's just going to be taxed ridiculously. It's going to be a ridiculous level of taxation that occurs on that wealth as it transfers over. So the government's going to win. Number two, I would anticipate a large amount of it gets squandered very quickly, either taking loans against the equity of houses or just selling houses, which, hey, flooding the housing market with a bunch of houses wouldn't be the end of the world. Absolutely not. Certainly there's a huge argument that can be made for the absolute need for relief in the cost of housing. Will it flood the market? Will enough come online at one time to affect the market, the overall prices? I don't know. I don't know. I think it's probably unlikely, but certainly would be great if it happened. But you're right. Millennials are set to inherit a large transfer of wealth. We'll just have to see how that plays out. Okay, hold on. Let me get back to my questions here. All right. The REI Struggle says, appreciate your honesty and courage. Thank you, my friend. I really appreciate you tuning in. PE turned RE says, get married sounds like a bigger risk than buying real estate. It is. It is. And it's, as much as I love to joke all the time about just being a playboy bachelor who's out here, dating 7 chicks at one time. I'm not actually dating 7 chicks at one time. I've never had a problem finding ladies to go out with me, but I typically just date one at a time. Or if I'm going out on a few dates, I only have one girlfriend at a time. I would still like to get married. It is risky. I sit there and I'm like, oh man, society just has pitted everybody against each other. We've got atheists who hate the Christians, and we've got men that hate the women, and we've got the race wars rioting against each other, and we've got the Democrats versus the Republicans, and it just seems to me that we continue to become more and more divided. And if I looked at it from a strategic perspective, it seems like the reason is because, well, when you can divide people and then make them afraid of each other, that fear is a powerful emotion, and it will encourage people to donate and vote. And so you can consolidate power if you manipulate and play on people's fears. No doubt about it. And it is very disappointing to see the fact that with the rise of so many of these different dating podcasts that you see out there, these panel shows where you've got, 10, 18 to 20 or 18 to 30-year-old women talking about what they want in a man, and a handful of guys arguing back and forth, these debates that you see, it does seem very divisive. Very comical. Certainly do enjoy watching them. They make me laugh. But yeah, I sit there and go, I genuinely would love to be married. I'm very pro-marriage. I'm extremely pro-marriage. I'm extremely pro-family. I'm just anti-divorce. And we have no fault divorce in this country, which means that I could be a perfectly wonderful husband and do everything right. And my wife could even say, he's a perfectly wonderful husband who did everything right. I just don't want to be with him anymore. So I'm going to leave and take half his stuff. And there's nothing I can do about it. I know this from personal experience. Nothing I can do about it. You just lose. And so navigating those hurdles, unfortunately, is something that I'm still trying to make it through right now. So I don't have any great advice for you. I probably wouldn't even be looking to get married if it wasn't for the fact that I genuinely want to have more kids. I've always wanted to have a big family. Would love to have 4 kids, and kind of hard to convince somebody to not get married but give you kids. I mean, like, well, a lot of people do it on accident, like, oh, whoops, I accidentally got her pregnant. But like, imagine that sales pitch. Here's what I want to do, ma'am. You look great. I want you to birth for me 3 to 4 children, but I ain't gonna get married to you. I don't think that one's going over particularly well. Man, maybe I'm wrong, but okay, hold on. Let me get back to these. All right, Clayton James says, meanwhile, large multinational corporations don't pay anything in taxes legally. Clayton, you mad about that? Who wrote the laws? Which party wrote the laws? Which party came to power with supermajority under President Obama or a majority under President Biden and has not changed those laws? Why are those laws there? You don't like it? Why are those laws there? I'm not the one saying I have a problem with it. I think that it makes sense the way that they do their taxes because they're following the law. And who here pays more taxes than they're legally obligated to? Not me. I take advantage of every tax break that I can, as I'm sure you do, as I'm sure almost everyone does. So if the law states you're legally eligible to take these tax breaks, you would be foolish not to. If you don't like them, change the law. Don't forget to mention that baby boomers enjoyed a very high amount of construction rates, which we have never recovered from 2008 in that regard. That is why homes and rentals are up. That is true. That's actually one of the favorite charts that Dion loves to throw up. And I have it somewhere in my phone. I don't have it available, but that is the fact that every decade since 1950, we built on average 20 million housing units until 2010, where we only built 5 million housing units between 2010 and 2020. So we underbuilt by 75% coming out of the Great Recession at a time when we have record high immigration, which I'm not anti-immigration, but when you're adding more people and housing is not staying consistent or increasing, well, you have more demand, significantly less supply. And also the millennial generation is a huge generation that came of age during the 2010 to 2020 timeline. So yeah, no, absolutely. Yeah, supply and demand. It was crushing us and it did not crush the boomers. They did not have that problem that we have. Okay, let's see. What else do we got? Legacy OPP says, I approve your message. Thank you, my friend. USA is lucky to have so many people from Lavetta wanting to migrate here as the world population declines. That's absolutely true. We actually are very fortunate about that. This could be on our side. Can't have a country without people. Absolutely. No, I think immigration to our country is a hallmark of America. And it's very interesting to me that with these political issues, for whatever reason, you're not allowed to say that you're pro legal immigration. You just immediately get lumped in with isolationists or racists and get told, oh, no, you're completely anti-immigrant. No, we're just pro legal immigration. Pro legal. There's a legal process to come here. It absolutely needs to be reformed. It's extremely cumbersome for people to come here legally. I think that we should reform that system to make it so that we can get the right people here, the people that we need, the people that we want, get them here 100%. All right, what else? Where else are we? Okay. Hey, there we go. Hey, I'm not here to agree or disagree politically with anything. I'm here for the business, participating and providing content and rebuttals. No problem, man. You're doing a great job. I appreciate you here giving us stuff to talk about. Wealth building journey. Marriage is a business contract. True. Both parties are supposed to respect their ends of the agreement. True. But we all know that that doesn't happen. You know, about 50% of marriages end in divorce. Right? That is a dangerous contract to sign. Would you go into business with someone and sign a contract where 50% of the time that particular business arrangement or contract fails? Pretty stupid business contract. I mean, that might meet the legal definition of negligence. Okay, let's see here. Remember, freedom of religion means freedom from religion. Interesting. You know, I love that argument. Because when you actually read the founding documents, there are, what's the right way to say it? There are references to religion everywhere. I mean, look at our currency. In God we trust. Look at the Declaration of Independence. You know, God created man in his own image. Or shoot, I might be misquoting that. Hold on. Yeah, no, this is the Declaration of Independence. But the founders were very religious people. with the exception of, I think it was actually Ben Franklin was like one of the only notable atheists. Most of them were very religious people. And God and religious ideas are found all through the founding documents. I have to do a whole show on that. Although this isn't a religious channel or a historical channel. But when I hear freedom of religion, freedom from religion, I just hear that the state cannot create a religion and the state cannot force you to be religious. But to pretend that the founding fathers were not religious and to pretend that it did not shape the way that they made their decisions and that it did not shape the way that they organized our country, it's completely dishonest. Absolutely it did. I mean, there's references to the commandments and to God all throughout our founding documents and throughout the papers that they wrote and the letters that they wrote and the ways that the states conducted their business at the time. So I think that one oftentimes is misinterpreted and just completely wrong. People like to pretend that, oh, separation of church and state means you can never have these two things cross-pollinate at all. No, it doesn't mean that at all. It just means that what they didn't want was one of the problems that they were having in England and escaping from, which is where the Church of England that was created by the king was dictating that everyone had to be a member of the church. And previous to that, the Catholic Church and the Pope was the ultimate authority and had more authority than kings of different nations. And they were trying to get away from that system, which is what they did. But to pretend that you're not allowed to be religious, or you're not allowed to talk about your religion, you're not allowed to share your values, or that your religious values aren't allowed to influence your personal beliefs is foolish. Absolutely they are. And they have for everybody in this country for a very long time. Even the people who say they're atheist are still culturally Christian. So you may hate it as much as you want, but you grew up in the most successful Judeo-Christian culture nation that's ever existed. And just by nature of being here and growing up in this country, it has influenced you. And maybe you don't believe that Jesus died for our sins and that we may go to heaven or hell. Maybe you don't believe in any of that, but you still can't escape the fact that it has influenced you just by the very nature of where you're born. All righty, let's see here. Oh man, I'm getting a bunch of these comments, guys. I'm trying to keep up with them all. Christians want atheists to stop meddling in theirs. Okay, maybe I missed a couple things. Hold on. Remembering freedom of religion, freedom from religion. And Christians want atheists to stop meddling in theirs. Christians are commanded to share the gospel. If you can't respect that, then I'm sorry. Yeah, no, that's true. Will the other amigos be on? No, I didn't ask any of them to join me. I didn't ask any of them to torpedo their channels in the same way I may be torpedoing mine. I didn't want to extend that invite, although I'm sure that they would support me in anything that I do. And you're more than welcome to ask them questions on what their thoughts are during a live stream. I know that the Lumberjack and Dion typically don't hold anything back unless it's absolutely required by terms of service. Okay, freedom. Unless we're talking about guns, taxes, what people can do with their bodies, or who they can marry, then some people want the whole world to govern their lives, but no divorce. Hello, prenup. Well, prenups, unfortunately, are routinely disregarded. They're routinely fought in civil courts and in divorce courts and thrown out. You can claim you signed a prenup under duress, and the duress could be, well, he wasn't going to marry me if I didn't sign this prenup, which to me is always the most comical thing that you could claim as duress, but apparently it's been a successful defense a time or two. So prenups are great, but they are not a guarantee. Adam Calhoun says, exactly, I can't stand that we are all lumped into being racist when we want to talk about legal immigration. Yeah, it makes no sense. And for the record, my biological father, whom I've never met, is an illegal immigrant from Mexico. His name is Jesus Armando Flores Moreno. He's a 5'8" Mexican guy that knocked my mom up when she was prostituting around in Alaska in 1990. So I'm what is known as an anchor baby. Got his name on the birth certificate. Can't deport me now. See you later. Never met the guy. No real need to meet him. I don't really care very much. I got lucky. I ended up being 6'4" with a 5'8" biological father. But hey, my mom was 5'10", so lucky me. But yeah, so illegal immigration, not great. Legal immigration, much better. People like my biological father, probably shouldn't be here. Wasn't a great guy. In fact, the only story that I know about him, my mom hung out with him for apparently 3 weeks. The only story that I know about my biological father, I've never told this to anybody before, is that he loved fighting so much that he would go to the bar and start bar fights so that the police would show up so he could fight the police because it was too easy fighting the normal guys at the bar. He wanted to fight someone that was a challenge. It's the only story I know. That's it. So there's that. All right, let's see here. Trump 2024. We're out of the closet, boys. Exactly. We're out of the closet. We're on the Trump train. Financial Firefighter says, aloha from Hawaii. Hope you're doing well, my friend. The Wealth Building Journey says, I believe SCOTUS, Supreme Court of the United States, is planning to address no-fault divorce and giving people more recourse methods to reconcile their marriage first. I don't know which case that's supposed to be addressing this term. That'd be great. Yeah, I'd love to see something change there. You know, I think that would actually probably be for the betterment of the country. I think if we can figure out a way to bring people back together in marriages, that would benefit. And I think a lot of men like me are rightfully afraid of getting taken advantage of and there's just nothing you can do. There's just nothing you can do. You go from having 100% access to your children to every other weekend. That doesn't even mean you're a bad father. They could even agree you're a good father. And now I could go from seeing my son every day to I get to see him every other week. I've got to pay a whole bunch of money in child support. I've got to pay a whole bunch of money in alimony. And she could even sit there with a smile on her face and say, oh, he was a great husband. He was wonderful. I just, I wanted to try something else. But that sucks, man. like, who wants to sign up for that? Not me. All right. I had this discussion with my Reagan Republican uncle. That's important. 100. Ask anyone who's a citizen what the process is like to immigrate here legally, and no one can answer that question. What the process is to immigrate here legally? Yeah, I mean, it's extremely difficult for people to get here legally. The process is very, very cumbersome and difficult. And I mean, I have a friend who, so his wife is one of the dreamers, right? She's technically an illegal immigrant here. Moved here when she was like 3 or 4, right? So she's never known anywhere but the US. She's like 30 now, right? Never known anywhere but the US. Just knows America. She was brought here when she was like 3. They were married and for like 10 years. She's still not a citizen. She actually had to go back to Mexico to then come here legally. I don't remember it was just all this paperwork. And there was this fear that if she left, she wouldn't be allowed back in promptly or quickly, and it could result in even more trouble. So yeah, I mean, the system is just absolutely broken. But, and again, call me a conspiracy theorist, I believe it just is meant to be broken because when politicians don't fix an issue, then they can run on that issue over and over again. So if we don't fix stuff and it's a popular hot topic issue, well, guess what hot topic popular issues do? They drive out the vote and they get donations. And that's why many of these issues don't ever get fixed. Why would you fix something that you need to keep people voting for you? It's ridiculous. All right. Financial Firefighter says, this is clickbait. Where are the other Avengers? I didn't tune in to see you. Well, you're on my channel, my friend. He says, just kidding. Good live. Trump 2024. Absolutely. I'll be voting. I will be casting my mail-in ballots in this incredibly most safe and secure election ever. There's one for you, Clayton Morris, bro. Please get rid of the mail-in ballots, bro. I mean, I can't even tell you. I've had tenants over there, right? I get mail-in ballots. I've lived in this unit for 6 years, and every election cycle, I get ballots to me that aren't for me. They're not for somebody who's lived here, and no one else has lived here for over 6 years. How am I still getting ballots? My brother moved to the state of Washington for like 6 months. He lived here and he got a Washington license while he was here. Well, when you get your Washington license, that's when you sign up to vote. We got ballots for him for 6 years after he moved back to North Dakota. And now I would never sit there and undo the ballot and fill it in and sign someone else's name and send it out. I would never do that. But I'm sorry. I don't trust that other people won't do that. And I know these ballots are going out to houses they're not supposed to be because I get them every election cycle for years. I've gotten them for years. And, oh, well, we do signature verification. I'm sorry. I just don't buy it. I don't buy that the signature verification is that high speed, that it's not going to mess up or miss some of them. All right. And you could say, oh, well, can fraud take place on a large enough level that it would actually ruin an election? And to my answer to you is yes. In fact, let me tell you a story about Washington State. where the single closest gubernatorial election ever took place in 2008 between the Democrat governor, Christine Gregoire, and the Republican contender, Dino Rossi. And when that election happened in 2008, Dino Rossi won by 800 votes. Now, it was a small enough margin that it immediately generated a recount. So they did the recount. He won again, but only by 300 votes. And then it went through the whole, oh, we got to recount it at least one more time. So they recounted it one more time. But all of a sudden, some extra ballots were found in a ballot box that hadn't been harvested yet, and they broke 2-1 for the Democrat over the Republican. What do you know? Christine Gregoire was elected as the governor, and it's been nothing but Democrat governors ever since. It's amazing. You don't believe me? Google the story. Closest election ever for a governor happened right here in the state of Washington, where we have mail-in ballots. I don't like it personally. I think that you go punch a piece of paper and we call it good. All righty, hold on. Okay, let's see here. I'm catching up with these guys. I'm going to turn on my AC because I'm sweating. Hopefully this fan isn't too loud. And if it is, I'm sorry. And if my camera dies, I'll just go swap the battery out. I appreciate everybody who's here. Okay, let's see here. Wealth Building Journey says, Mark, LOL. Julie Anderson says, vote people. Absolutely. Absolutely. If you are upset like I am about what happened 2 days ago to President Trump, first of all, I'm not going to gaslight you. I think you should feel upset. I think that you are justified in feeling like that wasn't a shot at just the president, that is a shot at you. That is a shot at your values. That is a shot at what you believe in. That is a shot across the bow at your ideals and goals for the country. Because he is the figurehead. He is the embodiment. He is the elected official representing the values that I have and that many of you share. And when somebody tries to take him out, we take it personally. I take it very personally. I was extremely angry. I thought about doing this live stream the night of, but I didn't think that would be a particularly smart thing to do because I may say something that I shouldn't say. I think it's always best to try your best to respond to things in the most measured way possible and not let your emotions get the better of you. But absolutely, I was livid. In fact, I went to the gym and had one of the best workouts I've had in a very long time. I was pissed, throwing weight around, making a noise, making a mess is what it is. But the best revenge you could possibly have is just to vote. Vote and win. And then do your best to enact your values and your policies and what we believe, to push that out there and do well with it. So you're right, Julie Anderson, vote. Lavetta says, wow, what a story. How did you end up in North Dakota? Okay, so my family moved to North Dakota when I was 7. So my mom went to Alaska where she made a whole bunch of awful life choices. Came back to Washington, had some more kids with some violent, abusive dude that wasn't my dad. This is my first stepdad. Ditched that guy, hooked up with some other dude. They moved us out to North Dakota. She had a couple more kids with him. He was actually the only good one out of all the guys she was ever with. He was the only good one. He's my youngest brother's father. And so then she divorced him, took everything, and we lived out there in North Dakota until I was senior in high school. Then I moved back to Washington because I haven't told a lot of these stories about myself. I got kicked out of my house. My mom was a drunk and a drug addict and had a boyfriend who was extremely violent, would beat her. And I got old enough to the point where I was trying to stop him from beating her. But, I was 16 and weighed 120 pounds and I got my ass handed to me by a full grown man. And she promised she was going to call the cops and kick him out and we'd never have to deal with him ever again. And, like a week or two later, she was like, well, actually, he doesn't like you. So you have to go, Mike. And I was like, well, I don't have any family in North Dakota. So I asked a couple of my friends if I could live with them. And I was only friends with other poor kids and they didn't have anywhere to put me. So the only family I had was in Everett, Washington, my grandma. So I moved out to live with my grandma and I've lived in Washington ever since. So there's some history about me, in case you guys were wondering. As a female, I fear being taken advantage of too. Men play this game too. Lavetta, I'm sorry if I don't understand the correct context in which you're making this statement, but um, obviously, I don't want you to be taken advantage of. I The reason I became a police officer, we'll just tell all the stories today. The reason I became a police officer is because a friend of mine who was a female was taken advantage of and killed. I grew up hating the police. I grew up very poor, as I mentioned earlier. Mom was a drug addict. I had no positive experiences with the police in my entire life. I did not like the police. I hated the cops, hated the abuse of power, the authoritarianism. Couldn't stand it. And I moved out to Washington. When I was like 18, I got pulled over. It was the first time a police officer just was ever like civil and nice to me instead of a small town cop just picking on a kid, who looks too young to be driving, so they're pulling you over for whatever. Pulled over by some guy who was actually nice to me, polite. I was speeding, shouldn't have been speeding. Some dude was driving recklessly, like in front of me and slowing down and hitting the brakes, and I decided to pass him because that's the reasonable thing to do, right? Hit the gas and pass him. Very smart. Instead of just pulling over or waiting for them to leave. Yeah, I was 18. What are you going to do? And guy pulls me over. He comes up and I'm like, how did you not see the other guy who was like swerving all over and slamming on his brakes? Why didn't you stop him? And he goes, man, I'm sorry. I just didn't see it. If I had seen him, I absolutely would have pulled him over, written him a ticket. I just happened to see you hit the gas and go flying past him. That's why I stopped you. And he came back up and he gave me a ticket. He said, look, I'm going to cut your brother on law deal. You were doing 30 miles an hour over the speed limit when you passed him, but I'm going to write you a ticket for just exceeding safe and posted speed. So instead of a $400 or $500 ticket, it's going to be a $100 ticket. I'll try to save you some money. I'm sorry I didn't get that other guy. I was like, wow. The way that this guy talked to me was polite, professional. I thanked him even though he gave me a ticket. And I went away from that, like my perspective changed. And I think that happens when you're around 16, 17, 18 years old and you're like, oh, maybe I shouldn't judge an entire group of people, police officers, or any group of people. I shouldn't judge an entire group based off the actions as one, as though there's some monolith that can't have variation amongst themselves. It's a growing up moment most people have, hopefully. And I still wasn't really keen on the idea of ever becoming a police officer. I never really thought that it would be something I would ever want to do. And I was working in construction. And I had been asked to open up a new franchise about 60 miles away from the one I had worked at for several years. No problem. I go down there. I moved down there, young single guy. I moved down there. They asked me to hire like an office secretary lady. So I hired this 19-year-old young lady who was married to some guy in the military, and very nice, very professional, just an absolute sweetheart. We ended up spending a ton of time together because she was the only employee and I had to teach her everything. And I was like helping build the showroom area. So we became friends and things like that. And after about 6 months of her working for us, I get a call from my boss one morning. And he says, Mike, I hate to be the one to tell you this, but Danielle was killed last night by her husband. And it was the first time in my life where somebody that I was close with died, period, much less was murdered. And I was in complete disbelief. I was like, that can't be right. I just texted her yesterday. It just can't be right. Like, what? No. And the stages of grief set in, like denial, complete denial. Like, this can't be right. This can't be right. And sure enough, unfortunately, came to find out as the news crews contacted me, and as the detectives contacted me, they said, yeah, she was murdered by her husband. And I was interviewed about why, what would happen. So they were 19, they got married very young, which is a little bit reckless to be married that young. And she had been being abused by him for like the whole marriage. He would physically abuse her. He would humiliate her in front of his friends. He would demand that she wait on him hand and foot and like serve all of the friends, and she kind of make fun of him and controlled her life, and super insecure, always like monitoring her phone and stuff like that. Very, very jealous type. And so anyways, he was gone for 5 weeks leading up to the death. He'd been away at some military training. And you guys can actually look this up if you want to look up these news articles as well. Just JBLM, Joint Base Lewis McChord soldier kills wife, happened in 2014. We're coming up on the 10-year anniversary this October. And so he comes home from his training, and apparently they get in an argument, and he, gotta be careful what I say here, but he uses a weapon to get her in the back of the head while she's seated at her computer. And the police reach out to me, and they weren't supposed to tell me this, but they told me about all of the past abuse, and they had found on his phone and they'd found on her phone her telling her friends about the abuse that she was going through. Uh, and I was 23 at the time. And I remember thinking to myself, how did I not figure it out? How did I miss what was happening? How did I not see it? And then I start, in retrospect, putting all the clues together in hindsight. Well, yeah, she came to work with a broken phone, and then she bought a new phone and showed up again with a broken phone again. That's weird. She must be the clumsiest woman alive. No, what was happening is he's going through her phone and he's angry at her. He's chucking it against the wall to intimidate her. And she would tell me things like, "Oh, I got to be off. I got to be off on time. I got to go straight home because if I don't get home in time, I got to make sure that everything's clean and ready to go, just the way that he likes it." And I mean, she didn't say it quite that like scared in her voice, but she just really had to make sure she was always home on time, so things were done properly and it was clean, and the dogs had been let out so that they wouldn't be too excited. And I was like, man, this dude's really particular about his dogs, and I wouldn't care that much if like dogs were that upset. Whatever, I didn't put two and two together. But as I sat there in the preceding months thinking about every single little sign that there was that abuse was happening, things that I would pick up now with 10 years of law enforcement behind me and many different domestic violence situations that I've been to, things that I would see like that, had no idea about. And so I held myself personally accountable for failing her and for her death, because if I had just known better, if I just known what to look for, how to interpret what I was seeing, maybe I could have done something or said something, or who knows? We'll never know, unfortunately. And so I decided that I wanted to be a police officer because I wanted to make sure that evil, awful, horrible, dangerous people like him go to jail where they belong, where they can't hurt other people. And so I immediately started applying and became a police officer. And I've been doing that for 10 years, got on the SWAT team 5+ years ago, and I get the wonderful privilege of putting away some of the worst people that society has to offer. And it's unbelievably rewarding. And I hope that Danielle is watching from up in heaven, that she can at least appreciate what I've done. And I'm sorry that I let her down. All right, let me get back to some of these comments. But that's why I became a cop. So, and to the comment that Lavetta said, she doesn't want people to take advantage of her. I became a cop because I hated seeing someone taken advantage of and ultimately killed. And I don't want that to be you or anyone else. Well, Booming Journey says, not carousel riding. Oh boy, let's not go down that. All right, I'm down to stand up here for President Trump and my religious values, but now let's not go down that one on this live stream, okay? All right, share the Constitution with your coworkers. Absolutely. Clayton J. You know what? Better than share the Constitution with your coworkers, just invite them to go to the shooting range with you. That's sharing an amendment or a right and putting the fears of things like that behind them. Like, most of the time, the community of people who are actually interested in firearms, like myself, are extremely responsible and are absolutely pro-education about it and pro-training in a safe, regulated environment to teach you and teach others. Just take them to the shooting range. It's also a great first, well, not a first date, like a second date. It's usually like one of my second date. It usually works, right? Get their adrenaline pumped up. They're excited. They don't know what's going on. They're like, oh man, I had such a good time. Gotcha. All right. Let's see here. Clayton James says, duress. Ha! To fix that, you have your attorney talk with her attorney and let the two attorneys do the negotiations. Rock solid. True. Or you have an arbitration, like a judge that's doing arbitration, just mediate over the whole process. You can do that as well. Hey, Mike, he's alive. Thanks, Rob. Nice to see you too. Clayton James says, so she never worked and you supported her. Sounds like, yes, I did. Sorry if that's too personal. Disregard. So no, I 100% believe that it is the man's responsibility and God-given duty and God-given privilege to protect and provide for his wife and family. No woman that I have ever dated ever has paid for any date they've ever gone on with me. I pick them up unless they're not comfortable with that for like a first date. It's my job to provide. You pick them up, you pay for dinner, you take care of them. That is my masculine role. It is part of my masculine imperative to protect and provide for my wife and my children. Absolutely no, my wife did not have a job. She didn't have to have a job. That's my job. She has her own roles and responsibilities. That's not one of them. Call me a sexist or call me traditional, whatever you want to call me. But I'm going to go with traditional male values. All right, let's see here. Lavetta says, do you CrossFit? No, I don't do CrossFit. No, I lift weights and I play basketball and I play soccer. We could be shocked, but were we really surprised? Unfortunately, Rob, no. Very shocked, but not surprised. Lavetta says, thanks for sharing your story. What a journey. Yeah, absolutely. But you know what? We all have our own journey. We all have had our own struggles and hurdles to overcome. And we're all running our own race out there. And I'm just grateful that mine's brought me together with all of you guys at this point. Let's see. Our finance firefighter says, yeah, don't judge firefighters. Well, we can't help but judge them a little bit. Julie Anderson says, my sons are your age. It's really hard for them to not find crazy liberal girlfriends. Yes, that is, especially in Washington, it can be very difficult, you know, and I don't know. Yeah. I had to have a conversation with my son has a sister, a half sister. So not biologically my child, but he has a half sister. And the half sister's family I'm good friends with. I try to make sure that my son and his half sister spend a lot of time together. And on the half sister's side, the grandma over there was, you know, trying to give me the advice of, you know, getting married and stuff like this. And I was trying to explain what I'm looking for. And you know, I was like, well, I'd love to meet, you know, like a nice young lady who's, you know, 25, 26, 27, who's interested in having kids and, you know, being a wife and being a mother. And to the grandma, well, it makes perfect sense. To the next generation down, it's, well, I mean, that's really asking a lot of someone to want to have 3 kids nowadays. I'm like, is it really that crazy to be like, look, I'll pay for everything. You'll be completely taken care of. I just want to have a couple of kids and, like, you know, a traditional family. And, you know, your biggest responsibility could just be picking whether or not you want a Mercedes or a BMW and choosing where we go on vacation. That seems like a pretty decent life, but it's tough to find. Like, man, you can't find just normal, like, they don't want children. They just don't want children. Like, my last 3 girlfriends, they love to spend time with me. And it's like, are you interested in children? Nope. No. All right. Craziness. Very hard to find it. All right, let's see here. The Wealth Building Journey says, Michelle Meyer, even prenuptial agreements could be subject to being challenged in court, and they often are. Was their agreement signed under duress, etc.? The Wealth Building Journey, denial, bargaining, anger, sorrow, despair. Yes, the stages of grief. A couple of other ones, and then finally acceptance. Yes. Wealth Building Journey says, on the live, sir. Clayton James says, I just wanted to reply to that comment earlier about citizens not having enough kids, and thank God for immigration to help make up for it. Hasn't net migration been falling for 26 years? I don't know what the stats on that one are, buddy. I'm sorry. When it comes to a lot of these subjects, it is a case by case thing. Love you guys, and I don't like arguing with anyone, especially my friends. True, Michelle. You don't have to argue with me. I love you for who you are. And I am your favorite private money borrower because you get paid like 4 or 5 days early. You're welcome. Clayton James says, fun fact about me, I've spent a lot of time abroad. And there's so many things other countries have that we do not and should have. They pay more in taxes because they don't have the games. And I got pulled over in East Chicago recently going way over the speed limit. The cop was really nice, but not going to lie, I played up the real estate investor card to let him know I'm fixing Gary. Dude, hey, man, whatever it takes, bro. Whatever it takes. I like it. Rob says, no, you could not have done something. Well, Rob, I do appreciate that. But and I can understand that on an intellectual level, and I assume this is referring to my friend who tragically was killed by her husband. No, you could not have done something. But what kind of person would I be if I didn't sit there and hold myself accountable and say, but maybe I could have? I think that's another major problem our society has, is that we have a complete and total lack of accountability. No one wants to be accountable for their own bad decisions, be they economic, financial, political, life choice, whatever it is. Everybody always wants to pass the buck to someone else, point the blame, point the finger. Nobody wants to just say, I screwed up, I messed up, I'm uniquely accountable for my own life. I believe in hyper accountability. If I want to be in shape and I want to be fit, I go to the gym 6 or 7 days a week. I play basketball, I play soccer, I eat healthy. I take it into my I take accountability for myself. Same thing with my finances. I did not like being poor. I grew up very poor, about as poor as you can in the US. I can go toe to toe with damn near anybody in the poverty Olympics so long as they're not coming out of a third world country. And it's on me to do better. If you're a 25, 28-year-old man and you haven't figured out how to escape poverty, that's your fault. Doesn't mean you have to be rich, but if you're still in poverty, the problem is with you. Take accountability and do something with your life. It's not that hard to figure out how to make it into the lower middle class, and then the middle class, and then upper middle class. I managed to do it with nothing but a high school education and a good hard work ethic. So I fail to feel bad for those people out there who don't take it upon themselves to be serious about their life. You only get one. Figure out how to make it exceptional. All righty. Michelle Meyer says, and let me be clear. I'm shocked and disappointed about what happened. Can't believe a 20-year-old has the wits to get around the Secret Service. Also sad about many lives being lost. Well, so in my job as a SWAT officer for the largest agency in the state of Washington, I have had the privilege of doing many dignitary protections. I've assisted in providing security for President Obama, President Biden, Vice President Harris, Vice President Pence, a couple of foreign nationals that have come here before. And typically what happens is the Secret Service reaches out to local law enforcement because they need significantly more numbers than what they have readily available, especially when it comes to things as simple as like shutting down roadways and traffic ways so they can move the package through these areas in a secured manner. They reach out to local law enforcement. Did this guy outsmart the Secret Service? You know, there's a lot of talk about, well, was this a setup? Was this an attempt to diminish the security profile so someone could do this? Was he really that smart? Were they that stupid? Was there something nefarious going on? Was it all staged? I can tell you that one's the stupidest one I've heard. I'm an expert marksman, and there's no way I would ever feel comfortable with even the greatest sniper in the world telling him, hey, man, I want you to shoot at my face, but just hit me in the ear, you know? Like, sorry, you don't stage something like that. That's foolishness. I think that we'll probably learn more in the future. But what it looks like to me as someone who has been a part of these types of details many, many times is that it was purely a lack of resources, and the resources would be primarily personnel. Typically, you would see what almost feels like as many police as there are participants in a rally. And from what I'm seeing, from what I'm watching and what I'm hearing in the news reports is that it seems like there was a major lack of manpower. Now, how that got approved to happen with such low resources, that's a whole other conversation. Was it requested and denied? Was it not requested? Yeah, I don't know. But all I can tell you is, as someone who has been a part of these types of events and I didn't run it like I was in charge. I mean, I've been in the operation. How there weren't people on every rooftop within 1,000 yards of the event, completely shut down. Beyond me. So I will be looking forward to the independent review of what happened that has been promised to the American people. I would love to see what happened there, because it seems like one of those things that should not happen and has not been my experience in the past when I've participated in these events. I do have to be a little careful with what I say about that, but well, Building Journey says, don't beat yourself up, Mike. My dad passed in 2020. The pathologist mentioned that he had developed the metabolic syndrome, high cholesterol, high blood pressure, and diabetes. What was notable was that the pathologist mentioned that the metabolic syndrome takes a minimum of a decade to develop. There's only but so much we can do. You're doing what you can now that you know. Absolutely. Mike, future passport bro. Yeah, man. So for those of you who don't know, passport bros are men who exclusively travel outside of the country to date women from other countries, and has a bit of a negative connotation to it because it's often looked at as sexual tourism. It's like, oh, I'm literally just going there to like hook up with escorts in these other countries, which of course would have a negative connotation, versus, you know, hey, it's really tough to find somebody who has the same traditional family values that I have, but there's people over here who have a different culture, and that culture puts a a greater importance on family values, and I would like to go find someone who has similar family values. So yeah, Rob, maybe we'll see. Dennis, REI Life Struggle says, I have 5 kids, 22 years in the Marine Corps, living paycheck to paycheck, but wouldn't change a thing. Finally figuring out the financially free mindset. Dennis, bro, I'm glad you're here, my friend. And we're probably going to wrap this thing up in a few minutes. I'm glad that you're here. There's nothing wrong with getting started late. It's funny. I've had people message me as old as 60, 65. Is it too late for me to get started investing in real estate? Is it too late? No, man. I got friends who started at dang near any age you can think. I've met someone who started at that age and became successful. So I got started at 28. I'm 33. I now have 27 around the units. At 28, I had $1,000 in my bank account. I was recently divorced, didn't have custody of my son, had been poor my entire life. And at 28 years old, the very first video on this channel, I tell you exactly what I just told you. And I say, I'm going to figure out how to become financially free with real estate. And I've documented the journey from start to where I'm at right now with videos the entire way. So Dennis, go back and start watching the earlier videos, and you can watch me buy my first rental all the way through number 27 and how I've done everything along the way. It's never too late to get started. You're in the right place. I'm always happy to help, my friend. And thank you for your service. Wealth Building Journey says something in either Portuguese or Spanish, I don't know. And Clayton James says that if they hold bad cops accountable, period, what do you think about those mindsets and opinions for holding bad cops accountable? Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, there's evil, awful, abusive people in every profession. For whatever reason, I swear to God, every other week there's a new article about some 8th grade female teacher assaulting one of her students. It feels like it's a plague at this point. I see articles about it over and over and over again. Does that mean that all female teachers are evil? No. Does it mean all teachers as a profession? No, absolutely not. Completely not. But for whatever reason, it's just more traumatic when you see that story because it's an adult and it's a child. And so there's that power imbalance that makes the story even more compelling. Like, how could an adult take advantage of a child? It makes it national news. Same thing with the police. The police are held to a higher standard. They should be held to a higher standard in their personal conduct and in their personal life. You should be held to a higher standard. If you're going to take other people to jail, take away their rights guaranteed to them by the Constitution when you take them into custody, you should be holding yourself to such a high standard that it's much harder to look at you and call hypocrite. And so holding bad cops accountable, please, by all means, I'll be the first to say, call foul or say that was wrong or he needs to be held accountable. Absolutely. I agree with you 100%. All right, let's see here. Rob, hit her with this one. Okay, more Portuguese, guys. I can't read it. I'm sorry, I can't read it. Mike, the first translation was, it's why I'm learning Portuguese now. Great job, Chester. Go find yourself a Brazilian wife, dude. Absolutely. It's her job to cuss in Portuguese, not mine. All right. Okay. Let me wrap up here with a few more words of support for President Trump. For the people who watch my channel, for the people who maybe see this video for the first time, the most important thing that I would like to say is I love this country and I love the opportunities that I have been given. As I mentioned a few times throughout this video, I grew up with a somewhat awful childhood, very, very poor, an unstable, disorganized, ridiculous childhood that you wouldn't wish on anybody. Abuse and abandonment and neglect, and we were evicted, and I mean, all these different things. Every horrible thing you could think of that can happen to a kid happened to me. And I'm not saying this because I want your pity. I don't want your pity. But I would hope that I could inspire you. America is a unique system in many ways. There's things about us that are like other countries. There's things about us that are worse than other countries or cultures, and there's things about us that are better. And I don't think that the opportunity exists as much in any other country as it does here to go from being a poor kid from a poor family and a broken household to becoming a multi-million-dollar real estate investor, police officer, SWAT officer that I've become. Single father with full custody of his own son. The ability to start your own business here and make your way up the ranks of the socioeconomic ladder, to climb and claw your way out of poverty as I did, I think that is something that is most uniquely American, which is why people will walk thousands of miles and traverse some of the most dangerous landscape and dangerous people that seek to do them harm just to get here, just for a chance. And it's something that's existed since the foundation of our country. The people that came over here trying to escape the oppression of the Church of England, people that have come over here throughout the last several hundred years, escaping whatever country that they were seeking refuge from, or whatever wars they were trying to escape. They just knew that if they could just get here, if I could just get there, I don't need a handout, I don't need welfare, I just need to get there, because I know that if I make it to the United States, then it will be on me to become successful. And I believe in that system, and I believe in myself, and I believe in our system, and I believe in myself, and I believe in all of the people that will come after me and all of the generations that will come after me, that they deserve the same access to this system that can allow you to become whatever type of person you would like to be. I love this country. I love the values that I grew up with. I love the values that I stand for. I would like to share those values with others. And again, pro-American. I'm pro-God. I'm pro-family. I'm pro-mom and dad in the same house with kids. I'm pro-patriotism. I'm pro-capitalism. I'm pro-hard work. I'm pro-charity and seeking to do what you can for others. I think that if we all continue to try to do our best to help those around us, to be accepting of other people's worldviews and viewpoints, but never give in to the encouragement that some people give, which is to go along to get along. Don't share your opinion. It's not polite to talk about politics. It's not polite to talk about money. You shouldn't talk about your religion. I think maybe we should share more about it. I really, really think we should. At the very least, just so that we can remind everybody how truly diverse our system is and our population is. And I think that it's good to actually remind people that no, it's not just a bunch of crazy Christians or alt-right Christians that support the president. It's normal people like me who grew up with a crappy lifestyle and figured out how to invest in real estate. And I like to play soccer, and I coach my kids' soccer team, and I go to the gym, and I'm a police officer, and I'm just a regular person. I'm a regular person here living in this country like many of you are. And so I would encourage you to do your best to lower the anger or the hate, to not share, to not participate in the obscene political rhetoric, and instead speak what you believe in with pride, but also do it with a modicum of reservation, only in how you say it, to make sure that you're not instigating or inciting some type of violence. Because look what happened. Look what happens. Look what happens when you casually just call someone literally Hitler for 10 years on end. Crazy, unstable psychos will take that and then just run with it. So God bless America. God bless the USA. And God bless all of you guys for watching. I appreciate you being here. We'll catch you next time.